This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.
What's shaking, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. We are here for a Tuesday tune-up, and we're here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, get better every single day. This is going to be fascinating because there's a couple of subjects that I'm like, I don't know where this is going to go. This is going to be interesting. So get ready to do that and strap on. It's going to be fun. Share this because this is going to be all about leadership. And I think this is going to be one of those really intriguing conversations based on the young lady I'm about to bring on. Tania Luna is a renowned psychology researcher, author, and educator known for her work in leadership development. She is the author of Lead Together and has founded successful companies like LifeLabs Learning and Scarlet Spark. Tania is also a TED Talk speaker with over 1.8 million views, and she shares her insights on psychology through her podcast, Talk Psych to Me. In her personal life, she's an animal lover, living with a diverse array of rescued animals and the love of her life, which I have to say, before I bring her on, you guys, this is the first and maybe only time she says, I got to put you on. Just give me a second. I have screaming pigs I need to put outside. I haven't heard that often. So, Tania, how you doing?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I have some explaining to do. They were like the pigs are safe. No pigs were harmed in the filming of this podcast.
Well, it does make sense. You like to rescue animals, and I'm sure they are well taken care of. They were just needing a little outside time, which makes
They
sense.
wanted to go outside. Exactly.
So I love I love the name of your show, Lead Together. You are and I have this passion for leadership, and the topic of today is why leaders should share their power. I am all about that. That makes total sense for me. But I have to go to one just straight out of the way because you have this subject where it's like, drop your service mindset. Well, my jaw dropped when I read that, and I'm like, okay, I completely disagree, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see, what does that mean? Because I'm all about servant leadership. That is so different the way I'm reading it, or maybe I'm totally wrong.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go straight for the most controversial part. And so, yeah, maybe I'll clarify, and then we'll see whether we need to debate or discuss or just agree and stand on the same soapbox and shout about it. So, the way that I often see servant leadership presented is this idea of the opposite of what I call power over. Power over, and this is one of the things I explore in the book, Lead Together. Power over is all about, I'm the leader, I'm in charge, and I'm going to use my power to control others. I'm also not advocating for that, just to get that straight, first of all. That's sort of like, top-down approach to getting things done. I especially don't advocate that in times of change and uncertainty and needing to build a kind of team that's constantly able to learn and adapt to this rapid change that we're all experiencing. Okay, so no power over. However, servant leadership kind of tries to flip it and says, well, okay, if I'm not the big boss, if I'm not the one telling everyone what to do, then let me treat everyone as though they are my bosses. And I am sort of serving them and making sure that their needs are taken care of. In theory, it sounds lovely. In practice, what I often see is that there are a few issues with that approach. Number one is it can be actually very disempowering, at least when I myself have kind of tried that service approach, which tends to come very naturally to me. I realized that I would take on all the most stressful things. I would try to take away all the unpleasant, experiences of building a company or of working within a company. And unintentionally, I was kind of disempowering or reducing the power of my team because here I was, taking out the trash, literally or proverbially. And it meant that my team wasn't building those muscles, particularly, okay, not trash, but, the stressful situations, the stressful information. That's really one of the biggest issues I see with it is if I think of myself as a servant, I'm still thinking of myself as in some ways more powerful than my team. And I could potentially coddle or protect my team in a way that is just dangerous in a time when we need people to get stronger and stronger. And I think the second piece that worries me about the servant leader mindset is I've just seen it break a lot of hearts. I see, in my past life at LifeLabs Learning, my last company, we trained over 300,000 managers. We got a chance to study a lot of people and ask, what's tough for you? What are some of the things you struggle with? And they really have such a hard time going, well, here I am trying to put people first and be person centric. But then I'm also supposed to hold people accountable. And I also have to make sure that we get results. And then when we fire someone or tell them they're not performing, and here I was telling them they come first, then all of a sudden it feels like a broken promise. So I'll pause there to let you reply. I have another thing that I can add in there, which I think could maybe be a bridge between the servant leader approach and what I'm advocating for. But I've just talked a lot, so I'll pause.
Well, look, I did dive straight in. I didn't even ask you why you're passionate about leadership. I just went for this one because it was so fascinating to
Yeah,
me.
I
But no,
appreciate
I can absolutely get that. And look, on paper, there are times where I'll give an example. Radical transparency is something that I utilize in my companies.
yeah,
Now, that is a massive Pandora box if your company is not used to that.
right.
A, people aren't comfortable with it. Then B, you are literally giving permission to some craziness if you don't kind of set the rules and regulations. I guess my follow-up thought or question would be, what I'm hearing is, look, we need to set proper expectations for the
Mm,
team, for us. And that's really when I haven't read the book Lead Together. I love the title,
mm,
but that's where it's saying, look, we are going to lead together. We are going to be a team. It
yeah,
doesn't mean I'm at the top, you're at the bottom. It doesn't mean that we're going bottom up leadership either. It's literally everyone has a role and we're going to
yeah,
go play it. Am I
totally,
close, or what is your
totally.
overall leadership
Yeah.
philosophy?
Yeah. So really the shift that I'm advocating for is not power over, not power under, but power with. And this is a term that actually comes from this leadership scholar from the 1900s named Mary Parker Follett. She really was very well regarded at the time, mostly forgotten. And one of the things that I absolutely love about her philosophy is that power could be something that grows when you share it. And that's a lot of what I go into in the book is how do you actually do that? But power over, the person with the power, their power grows and grows while everyone shrinks and shrinks. Power with, leading together, exactly as you were describing it, I don't have to be someone's servant. I could be someone's partner. I could be someone's collaborator. Together, we can be in service of our mission. That's where I think servant leadership can still be really powerful is it's not me serving a person, but it's me and you together. Both of us have a role in this. We're in service to this thing that we both want to achieve. And that's really power with is all about using any power you have to grow the power in others. And then your collective capacity to get things done and to achieve results just keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, I don't think there's a utopian world of leadership where, look, you're not going to have a bad day. You're not going to have an uncomfortable conversation. It's going to
Totally.
happen. But when we have a shared vision, we're clear on who is doing what, who's responsible for
Yeah,
what the overall goal is. We're rowing the boat in the same direction. I think that's where we screw it up as leaders is we don't set adequate or proper expectations. Then
mm,
we overstep our bounds, start to micromanage, start to poke our nose in places where it
totally.
probably doesn't belong, completely disempowering the people that we have hired. What's the point
Mhm.
in hiring them at all if we're going to do that?
Yeah.
So how do we go about making it a smoother transition so that
Mhm.
I think of a football team. Look, the Patriots when they had Belichick and Brady, it's like we're going to
Mhm.
win the Super Bowl. That's the goal. Now, Bill as the coach has his role, Tom as the
Totally.
quarterback has his role. Everybody knows their role. And by the way, if Tom screws up, the wide receiver can say, "Hey Tom, you missed the read. You threw it to the wrong spot." And
Yeah,
Tom doesn't freak out because he's the quarterback.
totally.
Does that, because I'm a football
Definitely.
fan, I always bring it back to something that I can understand.
Yeah, and
How
I'm
do
married to a
people,
football fan, so I can understand enough of what you're saying to make sense of it.
but how do you, as a business owner listening, so that we put the proper expectations up front to save ourselves a
Mhm.
heck of a lot of time,
Totally.
drama, energy? How do we
Yes.
set it up? Because Tanya, I think people miss this so frequently and they're like, that's a lot of work.
Yes, and I think that what I so often see is leaders, especially entrepreneurs who are really passionate about their business, they're bringing people on and it's scary to let go of control. Either what I see is people hold on to it for too long, and they sort of keep the story in their own heads and they just give people little bits and pieces. So it's like everyone's trying to solve the mystery of what is it that we're doing here. More often though, I see people right from the beginning go, I'm going to trust people entirely. I'm going to give up so much control. I hear a lot of deferring to the expert. And in theory, that's wonderful. Of course, I would want that. But people do it way too quickly and they miss exactly the piece that you're talking about, which is, wait a minute, before you, kind of let go of all of the, um, the directing aspects of your role. Before you do that, let's get really, really clear on where are we going? What is the purpose of our organization? What's the purpose of each person's role? And what's the context that people need so that they can make really thoughtful decisions? So in Lead Together, I talk about these 4 power with principles, and 2 of them are exactly what you're describing. So the first, the way I frame it is follow a purpose, not a person. Follow a purpose, not a person. And the second one is rely on context, not control. Context, not control. So what I mean by follow a purpose, not a person is exactly like you said up front. Ideally, we're getting really clear on what does purpose look like, and not just in like a fuzzy, warm, like this is why I wake up in the morning, but how do we measure our progress? What's our strategy? What are our goals? What are our clear priorities? And how are we tracking whether we're on course? Not just for the organization, but this is the piece that so often people miss. What is the purpose and the strategy of the role that someone is holding, right? So whether that's a quarterback or a coach or, I don't know, linebacker, I don't know all the football roles, but you get the idea. You want a really clear role description to help people understand the purpose of the role, what are the responsibilities, and how is the success of the role measured. A lot of organizations will give this like laundry list of here, do these things. But what they miss is, why does this role exist? How does this link to the purpose of the organization? And how should you evaluate your own success? People have no idea how to tell whether someone is doing well or not. So then people themselves are stuck following a person rather than the purpose, because they're going to someone else and saying, am I doing this right? They're trying to please their bosses versus really being able to use their managers or their leaders as a source of support and accountability and feedback. Ideally, they know their own metrics, they know their own purpose and their own strategy. And then their leader is just there to support their progress toward that purpose. So that's that first principle. I can share more about the rely on context, not control, but again, I'll pause there.
Well, there's something that you said that it hit me, and I was like, the old school style of leadership was, all right, tenured or your positional leadership. Therefore,
Mhm.
that's who we're going to listen to. What I
Right.
love about Lead Together, and this is one of the things I try to dispel. I learn as much from my kids today as they learned from me. And by the way, that's been happening for the better part of a decade. Since they were
Mhm.
7 years old, they were teaching me things. Often I see
Beautiful.
some of these leaders are like, oh, this generation, I'm not, because I've been in this role. Bullshit. Look, everyone brings this new lens to the table. And
Yeah.
just because you've been there a long time doesn't mean that you know what's right.
Yeah.
Am I overstepping with Lead Together to think that that's part of the dynamics that you're really hoping for?
Yeah, that's a huge aspect of it. I think it's that two-way respect, right? Respect for people who have experience, respect for people who might bring a fresh perspective. And the power of Lead Together isn't just that it feels nice, but it's that it's essential if you want to survive in the midst of constant change. In the midst of constant change, those fresh perspectives and ideas have to come from everyone. Everyone has to be vigilant and kind of have that sense of ownership over the organization so that everyone's looking out and going, oh, there's an opportunity, or oh, there's a threat and we should react to that. And so, yeah, not only does it not serve the person or the organization to cut off this constant learning and exchange of ideas, also, what research shows is that, and again, this is maybe feels controversial to hear, but experience, at least in management, that's what we studied at my last company. How many years of experience you have as a manager doesn't predict how effective you are as a manager.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot behind that. That's probably because most people don't get kind of leadership development support, or they don't get feedback. They have no idea, are they doing a good job or not? Often that's because they're working in environments where it's not safe to give feedback. People feel like, well, this might impact my salary, my chances of promotion, how it feels day to day to work here. Why am I going to tell you that I don't think that you're having the kind of impact that you could as a manager? So a lot of people just have no idea. It's like you're driving, but you have no feedback from the road where you're going, or if you're hitting any cars along the way, until maybe like a year later when someone quits and you're like, was I doing something that resulted in that? So, yeah, I think not only does experience not consistently tell us whether someone is going to be effective, it also just pays so much to be in this constantly exploring, hearing each other, supporting each other space, including people who are new to the organization having respect and excitement about learning from people who are tenured. I often see the opposite, right? Of people coming into the organization and being like, who are these dinosaurs? They don't know what they're talking about. That doesn't help either. Right? So how do you have that mutual exchange? And often it's this defensiveness that starts to happen. One side doesn't hear the other. And so they build up these walls rather than going, let's each have a significant role where each role is valued within this organization.
So you guys, she was hitting on what I call psychological safety, where you allow people to, hey, I'm going to give feedback. I want feedback. And don't leave as a leader, please don't leave whoever you're working together with, whoever you're responsible for, whomever you've given an expectation, don't leave them with zero feedback, because that is the worst spot for a person to be in. Am I
Yeah.
doing a good job? I don't know. They haven't talked to me. And that's why setting up these basic things like, hey, we're going to have a weekly check-in, a daily check-in, whatever it
Yeah.
is, not to
Mhm.
micromanage, but rather to check in, make sure you have all the support you need, celebrate your wins.
Mhm.
I want to ask, because the topic again, why leaders should share their power. One of the things that is on here, and I'm curious to see where this goes, is give your power away. All right,
Mhm.
leaders are going to give their power away. A few people just panicked, said, "Nope, not doing that." What do you mean by that? What does that look like?
Yeah. So maybe give power away is a harsh way of saying share power. So when I think of power with, if I first of all, I guess for context, my background is organizational psychology. So a lot of what I bring to the table comes from research, but I also got to grow my last organization to about 150 people. We were about 30 million in revenue with no funding. So I got a chance to have this kind of, still very much a small business, but had the opportunity to test out a lot of this stuff, in real life. So just to kind of give you the background of those two lenses, the research and the applied experience. And so in looking at what does it take to create this power with dynamic, with the research and my own experience shows, is there's two sides of it. One is I think of as grow it, and the other one is sow it. What I mean by grow it is look around your team and see, are there ways that I can grow their power? What I mean by sow it is look at places where power is unevenly distributed. It's too clumped together. There's one person who makes all the really big decisions, or there's a small group that's like approving all of these important things. How can you distribute that more broadly? So when I say give power away, I mean both grow power and distribute power. When it comes to growing power, there's a few different kinds of power that are most significant. Power is just the capacity to get things done. And if I look at teams that are most effective and most resilient, first of all, number one type of power that people don't even think about as power is skills. Often leaders are like, I can't give power away. People are incompetent. Well, okay, grow their power to get things done. Let's focus first on skills or knowledge. Number two is information. Do they have the context they need to make good decisions? Oftentimes, people give you horrible ideas because they have no idea what the backstory is, the history is, the goals are. So, how can you give information? Number three is autonomy. Can you give people some options in how they achieve their results? And that could be what goals they set, or it could be what hours they work, things that allow them the choice to kind of optimize how they work to achieve good results. So, what did I give you? Skills, information, autonomy. Next is influence. So, this is looking at how can I help my team become more influential? What relationships do they need to build? Am I hoarding all the important relationships, or can I make introductions? Can I help my team understand how to have influence without authority? And then finally, the fifth one is authority. So this is looking at, can I give people more decision-making rights? Can I give people more responsibility? Or in the way that we make decisions, could we do it in a more collaborative way? So usually when I say that, people are like, oh no, consensus. I hate consensus. I also hate consensus. I think for the most part, consensus is painful. It takes a really long time. Of course, it's culturally dependent, but it's usually quite tough. But for example, you could have two decision makers and a tiebreaker. Like this is what we used to do anytime we would hire someone. We always had at least two decision makers and a tiebreaker, or fire someone. So that way you never feel, to your point of psychological safety, it's really hard to feel psychological safety without structural safety. If I have no idea how termination decisions are made, how promotion decisions are made, or if I know and I know it's just one person deciding, I'm always going to hold my tongue and feel scared about giving feedback. So again, it's those five opportunities to grow power. And then on the so it side, just looking around and seeing again, where can we distribute power more? Do we have one person making a decision? Well, could we make it two people and a tiebreaker? Or could we give people consent versus consensus? So consent is everyone has veto power. Everyone can say, I think this isn't safe to try, but we don't have to get everyone to say, I love it, as an example.
Yeah, I think often this whole idea of consensus, and I was just recently having this discussion because I watch when companies grow. You said 30 million without funding, not that big. That's a good sized company. That's a great accomplishment. So great job.
Well, I guess like our
But
clients were all much, much larger. So in my brain, it always felt like a
sure,
small organization.
sure.
Yeah.
But the benefit to a smaller organization is you don't have as much red tape and
Right.
bureaucracy. And I watch these companies that they have blind spots. There could be, if it's 1,000-person organization, 500 people could know there's a bad blind spot. We are totally screwing this up, and we're not going to
Mhm.
move on it for a quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters,
Ugh,
because it has
yeah.
to go up the chain and the chain and the chain, and then nothing gets done.
Yes.
I think big companies miss this probably more than anyone.
Mhm.
And their shareholders would receive so much more value if they could come up with the system you even talked about.
Mhm.
2 decision makers and a tiebreaker. You can
Mhm.
eliminate so much time.
Yes.
What were you seeing when working with your big companies? Like, how did you help them with these decision-making processes? Because I think companies are failing in general when it comes
Mhm.
to this.
Yeah. Well, some of the companies we worked with, we really got a chance to learn from. Like Netflix is, a large organization, but they are very lightweight in their bureaucracy. So they'll say things like this. We didn't help them with this, but this is something that we got a chance to learn from. Is they'll say things like, um, instead of saying you have to get approval before you spend money, they'll say things like use your best judgment. Instead of saying go to HR to learn about your dress code, they'll be like use your best judgment. Compensation. This is something we have helped a lot of companies with, is going from I have to go to my manager and negotiate and try to win them over, to let's just have a compensation formula. Let's be super transparent. No one has the power. The process has the power. Of course, we should use human judgment and review it from time to time, see if it's still serving us. But instead of having these like time consuming emotional negotiations, let's just be really clear about which role gets paid what in what, progression, things like that. Um, the other things that we helped organizations with is helping their strategic planning process become a lot more transparent and collaborative. Very often, strategic planning happens somewhere behind closed doors or closed Zoom doors. No one actually knows what it is. Half the time, the people involved in it don't fully understand what it is. And then, like, this big strategy comes out of it that almost everyone immediately forgets and no one takes action on. And so, a lot of the things that we've helped companies with is actually make that process way more lightweight and way more collaborative and inclusive. So get one of my absolute favorite tools is building a proposal culture. So instead of just saying, what's everyone's feedback? Give us feedback. You actually go, okay, we're about to start doing quarterly planning. Put your proposals in. So for example, at LifeLabs, at my last company, we had a template we would give to everyone. Literally anyone in any role could propose anything. So some people proposed a new role, some people proposed new benefits, some people proposed a new product. We didn't approve all of them. it was a great opportunity to look at the ones that didn't fit and discuss, okay, how do we, because we'd have like a relevant group of people reviewing it for each proposal. And we could talk and say, here's the barrier we're seeing. Do you want to keep working on this? Do you want to come back with a revised plan? And some we absolutely implemented, and it was amazing. Like some of our best, most fresh ideas came from these proposals. And again, I've seen this work so beautifully with several thousand person organizations in industries where it's not typical to be collaborative, like manufacturing, say, where you just say, okay, we're doing strategic planning. Here are our 3 goals for the year. Put in your proposals for ideas for how we could achieve those goals, for example. And I could go on and on about this, obviously, but those are some of the things that we've really seen make a difference. Oh, I'd add one more to your point earlier: role clarity, giving people really enough autonomy to understand what is the purpose of my role and what is the authority I have, what decision-making rights do I have, so that you don't have to, wait for someone to tell you what to do.
Yeah, I love the Netflix example because, again, a behemoth, yet they are, from the outside looking, I've never worked with them, but they seem
Very nimble.
they're fluid, right?
Yeah.
And the world changes so fast. Look, AI came out almost a year ago now. How much our world has shifted. If you don't get caught up and you can't have a decision done in a quarter, 2 quarters, you're going to get left behind. That's just the way it goes. I love that. Tania, I could literally talk to you for hours on this because I too geek out about leadership. Not that you're geeking out.
I'm geeking out. I'm in chronic geek out mode. Yeah. I haven't even started talking about the research. That's when my geeking out factor, amplifies.
Well, maybe we'll have you back because otherwise it'll just be me on the Zoom or whatever talking to you about this stuff. But I'll give you a chance, just kind of last form opportunity to say, hey, Jamie, you should have known enough to ask me this, but you had to go right into service mindset. So what didn't I know enough to ask you that you're like, you know what, this is what I want to leave the audience with?
Oh, well, I loved your questions. So I thought you did an excellent job extracting some of the pieces that might be a little bit more controversial. Maybe I can wrap up with the other 2 principles, and of course I go into much more depth about it in Lead Together, which I should, full disclosure, in case anyone's curious about this topic. So it's called Lead Together: Stop Squirreling Away Power and Build a Better Team. The reason squirreling is in there is it's actually written as a story about a business squirrel. He's a branch manager, and he goes off on this adventure to try to save his dying business and learns about power with approach to leadership. So there's lots of squirrel puns. It is written in that way to make it stickier, more fun, more accessible. And for those people that are like not into the story piece, there's lots of practical tools and tips and applications. So anyway, to answer your question, so I talked about the first 2 principles of Lead Together, power with approach. It's follow a purpose, not a person. Number 2 is rely on context, not control. Number 3 that we didn't get a chance to talk about is be a cultivator, not a collector. What I mean by that is a lot of organizations hold themselves back by trying to pick these perfect people to join their team from a finite pool versus really shifting to building this infinite field of skilled people. So I've seen a lot of organizations, to your earlier questions, how do we see power starting to flow more freely through the organization? One of the things they do is they really invest in how do we help people build skills so that we don't, first of all, we have way more people that could participate and contribute in meaningful ways, but also so that we don't create barriers to entry. Many organizations will say things like, you need 5 years of experience, you need 10 years of experience, and you're limiting and limiting and limiting. And again, potentially not even right about whether experience translates to effectiveness. And again, we've seen just amazing things with companies saying, well, let's get rid of the experience qualification and instead test how quickly people can learn, test whether they have the beginnings of the skill that we need, and then really invest in onboarding versus overinvest in trying to find those rare gems that are already perfect. And then oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I love this. Look, I want to get the 4th one, but we're going to leave them with a hanger. They're going to have to go
read the book to get the 4th one.
That's right. You gotta go read the book. But I love that. I hope everyone heard that. Look, just because they have qualifications doesn't mean they're good cultural fit. Yeah. It is, get rid of it, hire for character, not for the qualifications of the resume. I promise you, it's one of the biggest hiring mistakes I made is hiring on the resume, and they sucked as a human being, killed the culture. It's such an important idea. Tania, I love what you're representing. I want people to go find you. Where's the best place to connect with you online? Go find Lead Together and just get more of Tania in their life.
I appreciate it. So for just more Tanya in your life, or to see pictures of my pigs or other animals, my website is tanialuna.com, TANIALUNA.com. And then Lead Together, Stop Squirreling Away Power and Build a Better Team is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, wherever you like to get your books.
Awesome. Well, I so appreciate you coming on, sharing something that I'm passionate about as well. And your research, I will dive into at some point. So thank you for being here and sharing so much. It was really powerful.
Thank you. I'm going to go let the pigs back in.
All right. You guys, please share this out. There's so many really profound ideas, and she makes it simple. These are just new ideas. It's thinking outside of the box. And I think everyone that even touches a business, 100%, you will get value from it. Go get the book. Go check out Lead Together. I'm going to go check out our website, and make sure to share this with someone that you know and care about. Also, subscribe, share, review. It helps. It helps grow and get more amazing guests like Tania on here. So until next time, you guys, remember your mindset matters. I appreciate you all. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.